Okay, we're talking with Dr. Richard Smith. Hi, Dr. Smith.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, and you're from the University of Houston Clear Lake.
That's correct.
And so I wanted to kind of pick your brain about what a student that's considering going in to get a doctoral, going into a doctoral program should look for in a program, especially in education, specifically in education. What kind of advice would you give them when they're kind of weighing which program to go to?
Well, first thing I'd say is that you have to have your needs defined. You have to decide that you want to go for a doctoral program. You have to understand that it's going to be a lot of work, and it's almost a full-time, it is a full-time occupation most of the time. If you do it part-time, it's going to take a great deal of time. And second most, that's what you need to understand,
Right.
Basically.
It's not like something you can just do on the weekends, or
it's not like a master's degree program. If it's going to be a good solid program, it's not like a master's degree program.
Okay.
Because you're involved with your professors, you're doing research, you're communicating all the time, and the value of your degree is twofold. One, it's value to you, but two, externally, its value is dependent upon the reputation of the university where you got your doctorate.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because that's one of the things that a lot of people are probably confused about, because there's so many online places that are offering doctoral programs. So how do you know what's a good one, what's a bad one? How do you know what's got a good reputation? So if you go to a website or you look at you talk to their representatives, everybody's got a good reputation. Everybody's outstanding, and everybody's accredited. That's always the term that they always throw out. We're fully accredited.
Well, okay, so there are a couple of considerations here. One is, do you want to complete your doctorate online? The advantage is that you stay home and you complete it online, and you can sort of work around your schedule. If you've taken an online course, you understand how that works. The disadvantage is that you do not truly get to know your professors on a face-to-face basis. Now, a lot of people may say, well, you can know that person on a face-to-face basis, but I always like to compare it to that the online is facilitating the doctorate. And I like to compare that to being married. Well, yes, suppose you had to move to a different city, and your wife is in one city and you are in another city. Could you conduct that marriage online? Would it have the same meaning? Would you learn as much? Would you experience as much? You could have
Right.
the trappings of it, but not the real internal guts
It's like
of that marriage.
watching someone eat food as opposed to actually eating the food.
Essentially, well, or you can imagine having a Skype connection between you and your wife or your husband, and you're having breakfast and say, how are those eggs this morning? Oh, those eggs are really great.
They're yummy.
You can have the same type of conversation. Something's missing. But given that, when you're considering any university, and especially an online university, you have two types. You have your for-profits and your not-for-profits. Let's say. So your for-profits are universities that have been designed for the purpose of making money for the owners.
Okay.
Not-for-profits or traditional universities are those that have been created for the purpose.
For instance,
of
like the one you
extending
work
knowledge.
at is a traditional university, right?
A traditional university. We have courses face-to-face and online, but our purpose is to extend knowledge, to do research, and present research. The purpose of a for-profit is to make money for their stockholders, owners, or whatever it is. And what the product they're selling is the degree. So, if you wanted to get a job, let's say as a professor in academia, you would have to say that the for-profits, you should not get your degree from a for-profit university, because the chances of you getting a job in a reputable university with a degree, with a doctorate from a for-profit, are very low indeed. This is for a number of reasons. First of all, the for-profits would have a borrowed faculty. Well, they might have a full-time faculty, but the faculty is, many of their faculty members are borrowed. They don't really have a research reputation, which is what your doctorate is dependent upon. Then, given that, you need to go to a university that has been accredited by a national accrediting agency, and then moreover, you probably want a university that has been accredited within the field of your doctoral study.
Okay.
So that is usually very important.
That's
Although
the trick
there are some variations to it, because some universities have such a powerful reputation that sometimes they don't want to bother with the accreditation process, which is long.
Okay.
And,
I guess that's
very
a nice trouble to have that kind of reputation.
It's a very good trouble.
So let's talk a little bit about traditional universities that are moving to all online.
Yes.
Okay. So you spoke earlier about how online is not the best way to get a doctorate. However, there are universities, for instance, University of North Texas, University of Kentucky,
Texas A&M,
Texas A&M, that actually actually have right this minute doctoral programs in education that are completely online. So, what are your thoughts on those? Are they worth going to? Not worth going to?
If I were going to go to a university online for a doctorate, I would definitely pick one that is a regular face-to-face university, traditional university that is not a for-profit university. And universities that you just mentioned are all excellent choices, just bearing in mind that the online experience in a doctoral program, I don't personally think is going to be the equivalent of a face-to-face doctoral program. That doesn't mean that there aren't other qualities that can be brought into it. For instance, at the University of Houston Clear Lake, within our instructional technology program, we must have 4 or 5 of our graduates who are now enrolled at the University of North Texas in their brand new online doctoral program in instructional technology or in educational computing, I think.
Do you think that in the future, like now, you spoke earlier about how, like, you know, if you wanted to get into research or you wanted to work at the university level, that the for-profit, a real university probably wouldn't look at your for-profit degree.
Well, the for-profits are a kind of real universities, but the getting a job as an assistant professor, a tenure-track assistant professor, is very at a traditional university is very dependent upon the quality of the doctoral program that you have attended, on the quality of any research papers that you have written, and on the quality of the faculty within your program, and how well you know that program, how well you know that faculty within your program, because they're the ones who are going to write the recommendations.
Right.
And that's not an easy trick to do when you're studying with a for-profit university.
Do you think that a university will eventually look at people that have gotten their doctorates online from reputable universities versus, for lack of a better term, face-to-face doctorates? Like, let's say, for instance, University of North Texas.
Right.
If I got my doctorate there and I actually sat in classes, went through the program, as opposed to getting it online, do you think that universities will look at those differently?
Well, I don't think the universities will be able to tell whether you got your doctorate online or face-to-face, which is the same.
They don't put a big O after the...
Right. It's not, you don't get a scarlet letter on you. So I don't think they'll be able to tell that, but they will be able to tell from the references that are given. It's one thing to know somebody online. It's another thing to know that person on a face-to-face. When you're working at a face-to-face at a university, you have an opportunity to work with the professors on a daily basis on research projects that they're doing. So they get a very good knowledge of your capabilities and skills. Also, if you are working full-time for your doctorate, that means you're going to be at a regular university. That means you're going to be encouraged to do presentations at various professional organizations of the research that you might be doing or ideas that you may have, and you'll receive help from the professors at that university. And also, since you're attending full-time, you will have time to participate in committee help with various professional organizations, and these are the same organizations that put on the conferences.
Right.
So that gives you the ability to meet with a great deal of other professors from other universities. So you begin to get known in the field.
Do you see that? I notice a lot of universities seem to be jumping on the online bandwagon. Do you see that as just what do you see in the future for online learning, especially at the doctoral level?
Well, I think it will increase. It's a matter of economics. I don't know that this is particularly a really good thing, but it's one of these things that economics is pushing, because these days people want convenience, and they want to have things as quickly as possible. So if the universities aren't providing this, then they begin to lose students.
Do you think that if more students have access to this type of learning, and you have more students coming out with doctorates, do you think you'll have grade inflation where a doctorate won't become as meaningful as it is right now?
Yes, I think that's true. I think you have that on the undergraduate level also, with grade inflation, and grade inflation comes from a number of there's a number of reasons for that, but I think as long as grades are linked to the ability of having students graduate, and having students graduate is in part is good for the welfare of the university.
Right.
The grades tend to inflate, certainly.
So it'll be interesting to see the trends in the future, what happens with that. So,
well, yeah, I think you'll wind up with some very, very elite universities, even more so than now, and then you will have, or more so in significance than now, and then you'll have all the rest.
Dr. Ruchard Smith, thank you so much for talking to us. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tim.
University of Houston, Clear Lake
School of Education.